from New King James Version, and this first section is called Marriage is Sacred and Binding. So it says, furthermore, it has been said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that whoever divorces his wife for any reason except sexual immorality causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a woman who is divorced commits adultery.
Mm.
Now
Yeah.
that last part is kind of new to me, kind of new to
Yeah.
my ears.
Yeah.
I don't think I can't remember ever being in church where it made that statement. Um, so that's kind of new. That I'm
Hmm.
ready to kind of digest. And so whose thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's
Let's
your thoughts on that? What's your thoughts on that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you're referring to the last part, right? Where it's like whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery.
Well, I mean, give your thoughts on both 31 and 32,
O-
but fill it in with that as well.
Okay, so I'll start off. I'll start off by saying like one of the study notes I have right here, and then which says um Jesus insisted that sexual immorality is legitimate grounds for divorce. People who divorce for frivolous reasons and remarry are guilty of adultery since their original marriage covenant has not been genuinely dissolved. So I will just say that.
Yeah,
So
like I was kind of thinking like that. Yeah, this is why I like to read different variations of the Bible because the wording kind of switches up and changes, and in some versions it's a little bit more digestible than others. So, but yeah, I understand that because a covenant is a covenant
hmm
and you can't just break it off of what your will is.
hmm
I understand like worldly wise, they give you irreconcilable differences, which that was
that could mean that is
BS.
such a broad
That's
term,
it's
like a broad. There's so
it
much.
is.
It doesn't really tell you much.
It doesn't.
Irreconcilable difference. You
Uh,
guys disagree. That's all. That's what comes to my mind. You
yeah,
guys
that's
disagree,
the
so
simplest version of
so
irreconcilable. No, well, yeah, agreeing to disagree is the simplest
yeah,
version
yeah.
of irreconcilable differences.
hmm
I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you, but let's agree that we don't agree and let's end this marriage. Like it could be as simple as that, and it will probably it'll qualify for irreconcilable differences. So, like, I get it, and from this scripture, like, that's the first thing that popped to my mind. I'm like, yeah, okay, so none of that irreconcilable difference BS that you be hearing so many people talk about. And I remember seeing stats for it about like a year or two ago about
hmm
that's the leading reason on why divorces happen right now in the USA. So it's interesting to read that last component because of course I understand it and of course it makes perfect sense. It's just not the ideal situation I was thinking about when committing when not holding up that sacred covenant of marriage.
hmm
So I think that's what kind of like baffled me a little bit is the fact that it wasn't a normal thought process of when you didn't do it correctly and you try to remarry to do it correctly, you could just be committing a bigger sin. So,
Yeah.
and that is going to put both people in committing adultery.
Yeah.
So it ties
And
it back.
yeah, and with this whole thing, right? Like it's essentially, especially this whole thing of divorce, right? Because that's also like a piece of the puzzle that I think it's talked about a lot, right? Especially amongst like you don't have to be a believer or not. You don't have to be a believer to think to realize how much we've like just how much nowadays like marriage is almost like it's not there's no it's like marriage nowadays it's not a covenant, it's more like a business contract, you know, like I
Mhm.
have it right here on Google on my laptop where it says in 2025 overall, put my glasses on, in 2025 overall US divorce rates remain low with approximately 40% of first marriages expected to end in divorce.
Mhm.
um so what it's saying is that like lately like divorces have been falling, right? But it doesn't change the fact that like nowadays it's like a lot of divorces like are currently like increasing, you
Well,
know.
Yeah.
that statistic, yeah, it shows that people are divorcing less, but
Mhm.
the other component of that is less people are getting married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Very
that's
true.
the other reason why it looks like divorces are happening less and marriages are being upheld more. It's less marriages to be upheld compared to the
Mhm.
previous year. So just
Right.
full context to that
Right.
it's
Okay.
still a bad thing is decline.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah, and that's another piece, right? Because it's like that, like that's a bigger thing to think about, right? Because nowadays people don't want to get married. You know, people just don't want to get married because people think about. I think people think about. I think like other things, right? Especially if you have assets and whatnot, right? It's like why do I want to be with someone for the rest of my life? Especially like okay, especially like now, and I'm speaking for someone that I'm speaking from like I have divorced parents, right? And when I think about how they are, right, and like they're just completely different people on opposite ends, right? So um like, and I don't, and this is coming from like I this is coming from someone with a divorce background where like now it's like I want to be married that much more to try to beat that statistic, right? But what does that say about, like you said, everyone else that don't want to be married? Like what does that say for everyone else? So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think you guys really hit the nail on the head. I know a lot of people will say those two verses are really a true testament of the time. Because even just looking through some research, this decree was more in place to really protect the woman of because back then it was like a man could divorce a woman for any reason. As we move along in Matthew, it will give us the alternate version where it talks about a woman divorcing a man.
Yeah.
And we'll discuss that more in a few chapters from now. But a lot of this was protect the woman because back then, we know from just history, women weren't able to do much without the tutelage of a man, of having a husband, things like owning land, owning certain property, things like that. They weren't able to do much of anything. So this was for sure to um, protect them. But the relevance of it still rings true even today when it comes to divorcing your wife, or even like the wife divorcing the husband. And I specifically want to call back to the how we mentioned earlier, where you hear, well, they got divorced because of irreconcilable differences. And I started before I used to accept that with no question, like, oh wow, yeah, you guys disagree. Well, obviously you shouldn't be together. You disagreed. You shouldn't be together. But we're all brothers here. We don't agree with each other all the time, but that's what makes us unique as people. God made us different for a reason. That's what makes us unique as people. And it's because we disagree that makes us even more special. So when people say, "Well, we got divorced for irreconcilable differences," I think obviously I'm speaking from the standpoint of not having been married. And if that's within God's will, one day I will be. But it makes me think, well, did you try? Like, what did you try? Like, did you try hard enough in the marriage? So
Yeah.
I guess my biggest thing would be, how hard were you trying, and were you seeking to just be a were you seeking just a title, or were you actually seeking to be married? Were you actually seeking to be married?
I was getting ready to say that. Like
Hmm.
that, I think that's the main issue for today.
Hmm.
I think the title of it is just what's trying to be achieved, and um, the more focus should have been on are y'all equally yoked,
Hmm.
because that plays to me that plays part of the foundation of the relationship. And I mean, if y'all not equally yoked, you shouldn't even be trying anyways, because it's just going to end with reconcilable differences. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
easiest way to kind of put it, but yeah,
Yeah.
like so, and that's just based off of everything that I've heard and the amount of successful marriages that I've sat down and talked to slash listened to those couples on how they stay together, and um, the amount of marriages I've seen just like disintegrate over time.
Hmm.
And that's coming from growing up as a kid all the way to my adulthood now. So
Yeah.
uh, it goes all the way back to just biblically being yoked. And a lot of those times, as I look back on those explanations, a lot of people are just not equally yoked, and they choosing people because of if I want to reference these few verses back, sexual immorality, like it's
Yeah.
pure lust,
Yeah.
and a desire to achieve a title, which is kind of like a trophy. So,
Hmm. Yeah. I'll say this: if there was any episode that I would have wanted him to be on, I wish brother Anthony was with us. You know what I'm
I
yeah,
know
saying?
that would have
Uh,
been a perfect one.
yeah,
man,
in case you're new to the channel, we have another brother. His name is Brother Anthony. He's a married man, so we definitely would have loved to get his thoughts on this. I really wish he was here, but yeah, I would have loved to hear his thoughts. That's for sure.
This topic comes up again. It comes up like a couple of times more in the as we venture through all these chapters. So
yeah,
we'll catch them on another time, or we will probably do a whole episode in the future where it's just discussing marriage as a whole. So
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And let us know and let us know down in the comments what your take on it. Let us know your thoughts on it, right? Let's break bread and just really just get just hear different people's perspective on this whole thing.